Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello students, welcome to our learning session for the Semantics and Pragmatics course. As students, this course will help you understand how language works in real life and support your future role as professional English teachers. Let's start our learning journey and discover how meaning truly works in language in the first meeting with the title The Empirical Study of Language. What is semantics? I am Dr. Sharifah Rafika, MPD. We'll explain about what is semantic. The empirical study of language is the scientific investigation of how language is used and structured, grounded real-world evidence and semantics analysis. The empirical study of language in the relation to semantics. What is semantics? Semantics is the branch of linguistics that studies meaning in language, how word, phrases, and sentences convey meanings. Traditionally, semantics relied heavily on introspection, linguistic judgments, meaning based on their intuition as native speakers. However, modern semantics increasingly adopt empirical method. What does empirical means in semantic? In semantic and empirical, study means studying real language data, testing meaning through experiment, using applying statistical analysis, observing how speakers actually interpret meaning, instead of asking, does this sentence sound meaningful? Maybe a researcher can ask, how do real speakers interpret their sentence under control conditions? Why? So why is empirical semantics important? Because the first, reduce reliance on intuition, because the first intuition can be biased or limited. And the second captures variation, meaning can vary across dialects, social group, context. And then the second connect semantic with connection, cognition. Empirical methods show how meaning works in the human minds, not just in abstract theory. And the last one, it's about the shift of modern semantic. Earlier semantic theory, formal semantic, for example, focus on logical models. Modern semantics integrated with experimental method, statistical data, and cognitive in science, computational modeling. This makes semantics more scientifically grounded. So the empirical study of language in semantics means investigating meaning using real data, experiment, measurable evidence rather than rely only on intuition or theoretical reasoning. Okay? And a learning objective in this meeting, a student will be able to complete the objective below. The first is a student will be able to define and give example of the meaning in the empirical study of language. And the second, to apply and classify of the semiotic triangle and initial concept, compositionality, and the levels of meaning. And third, to analyze the unit of the semiotic triangle and initial concept, of course, compositionality and levels of meaning. And the last one, student will be able to evaluate the meaning in the empirical study of language. Okay, we start with what is semantics? Semantics is the branch of linguistics that studies meaning in language. It asks what does a word mean? How do sentences express ideas? How do speakers understand each other? How is meaning affected by context? Semantics try to explain the knowledge that allows speakers to communicate fact, express feelings, convey intention, create imaginary worlds. For example, in the sentence, the dragon is sleeping under the mountain. Even if dragons do not exist, we understand the meaning because semantics explain how words combine to form meaningful representation. Okay, and the semantic is crucial for understanding why semantics is important. Semantics is crucial for understanding, that first is about language acquisition, how children learn meanings. For example, a child learned that ducks refers to a category of animals, not just one ducks. Okay. And the second is about the language change. Meanings change over times. For example, awful. Original mean full of awe. Now it's mean very bad. Awful. Now it's mean very bad. You know that. And the second is the social meaning. Meanings change depending on context and style. For example, father in a formal situation and that informal. Old man, colloquial, for example. Semantic studies how meaning is constructed, interpreted, clarified, negotiated, misunderstood, for example. It's the semantics how to construct, interpret, classify, negotiate, misunderstood. And to describe meaningfully, we seem to have to make a reference to three principal terms: language, the word, and the human mind, following Ogden Richard. These three aspects of the meaning phenomenon are often symbolized as the semiotic triangle, as shown in this figure. You can see that in this figure. The semiotic triangles have language as a symbol, and then mind or concept true, and then word represent. Thought, a concept in mind. You have a concept in mind. Okay, we can see that. What is thought? Understanding thought. Thought concept in mind, the mental representation associated with the word. When you hear dog, you don't think of letter D-O-G. You imagine a four-legged animal that barks. This mental concept connect language to reality. Important to know that include not only rational thinking, but also emotional and desires. You know that in the top of the triangle in what Ogden and Richard called thought, in this in this reflect the fact that language comes from human being and is therefore ultimately a product processes in the mind or brain. But thought can be misleading label for the process for two reasons. First, this mental process need not be conscious, even though we sometimes consciously think about what we are going to say. Our speech is more often spontaneous, emerging without any preliminary mental preparation. Signs in the brain that produce language. We know that some such preliminary stage must have taken place, but since this stage is so often the unconscious, the label thought is not the most appropriate. The second reason that thought is an unfortunate label for the mental processes at the original of speech is that it includes the not rational emotional side of our inner life. The processes leading to speech should not be limited to what we would class simply as thinking, but extended to include our emotion and volition as well. It's about thought. And then understanding about symbols. You know that the left point of the triangle is the symbols. Symbol is the most straightforward. The symbol is in this terminology is whatever perceptible token is chosen to express the speaker's intended meaning. In spoken language, the symbol will be string of speech sounds. In science language, there will be specific hand signs. Signs the model is exclusively concerned with linguistic communication. We can replace the border term symbol with the simple language. The last apex of the triangle in the river and you know, um, uh, this one, okay, the symbol, for example, can see that in this, okay, referent, the actual these things in reality it exists. For example, about word angora, referent a specific cat. You know that angora, this is angora, but it's not the, for example, Scottish fold. For example, spink, for example, angora, this one. Referent, the word still has a meaning even without a real referent. A symbol is something which we use to represent another things. It might be a picture, a letter, a spoken or written word. Anything we use conventional for a purpose. The symbol identify the referent. This may sometimes be an object, a single word, for example, word rover, for example, rover is a symbol. For example, rover is a symbol. A real dog is the referent. For example, the what is it? Object in a single word. The word the word angora is the symbol. Angora. A real cat. A real cat is the referent. Is the real cat is the referent, but it may be something which is not at all or not obviously a prison like freedom, unicorn, or Hamlet. It's uh, it's not real, but it's present. Unicorn to directly address in the mythical creature known as an unicorn, often depicted as a horse with a single horn, does not exist in reality. This legendary animal is a product of folklore and imagination rather than a species found in nature. Okay, the semantic triangle. You see that. The semantic triangle proposed by Ogden Richard and then explain meaning through three interconnection elements: truth, mind, the thought, minds, and then the symbols, language, and reference is a word. Reference a word or object or concept. At the top of the triangle is thought, which refers to the mental processes behind language observer. However, thought can be misleading because language production is often unconscious and include not only rational thinking but also emotional and intention. It is a thought, okay? And then the symbols is the linguistic form used to express meanings such as spoken sounds, written words, or signs. It is the observable part of language. And the referent, this one is the actual object, event, or situation in the real or imagined word that the language referred to. For example, the sentence, the dog barks, the caravan goes by. The referents are the actual dogs and a caravan and in that situation. Importantly, symbols do not always refer to real world object. Some reference may be imaginary or abstract, such as freedom, unicorn, or Hamlet. For instance, unicorn does not exist in reality, but exists as a concept in human imagination. In short, meaning arises from the relationship between language as a symbol, mental as a process itself, and the words are reverent. For example, the connection between word and world is indirect. Word and then concept or mind, and then the object in the real world. Meaning arises through a mental representation. Okay, next we are goes to some initial concept for lexeme, sense reference, denotation, connotation, compositionality, and levels of meanings. First, we start in lexeme. A lexeme is an abstract unit of morphological analysis and linguistics that roughly correspond to a set of forms text taken by a single word. For example, in your screen, that a lexeme is the abstract vocabulary item that include all its grammatical forms. For example, lexeme go forms. In the lexeme go, go, goes, went, gone, going, all are instances of the same lexemes. This is usually a single word, but maybe a phrase in which the meaning belongs to the whole rather than its part, as in verb phrases. For example, turn in, turn on, drop out, or noun phrases, cook up. Okay. And the next is about sense and reference. Sense is the conceptual sense as the conceptual meanings of word. For example, queen, female monarch. This does not specify which queen. The you know that the sense, the conceptual, the meaning of word. For example, queen, king. For example, but we don't know. Man, for example, king. A man then monarch with not specific with the king, for example. And the reference is the specific object referred to in a situation. For example, the queen is visiting. If we have what is it? We have the sentence, the queen is visiting. Who is the queen? Because we have reference depend on context. Well, when we in UK, we know that Queen is visiting is the Queen Elizabeth II, for example. But when the sentence, the Queen is visiting when we are in Denmark, so the the Queen referred to Queen's Margaret. Okay. Some things different reference. The sense of lexeme may be defined as a general meaning or the concept underlying the word. The definitions of sense can be made more explicit by contrasting it with the category of reference. For example, the queen has fallen off the table. The reference changes each time we talk about a different queen or a different table. If I am talking about a rowdy evening at Buckingham Palace, the referent of the word queen is Her Majesty Elizabeth II, and the referent of the word table is a particular piece of English royal furniture. For example, this one. But if I'm talking not about Elizabeth II, but about Queen Margaret of Denmark, for example, these pictures, the word queen and table have different reference, not Elizabeth II and the English piece of furniture, but Margaret and the Danish one. On each of the occasion is uttered, there is one and only one referent of each word. The referent changes each time we talk about the different queen or a different table. Okay? And the next is about the entire class of object to which an expression correctly refers is called the expression, the notation. Since the referent and the notation are three aspects of what is commonly conveyed by the loose term meaning. A fourth very important aspect of meaning is connotation. You know that the connotation name this aspect of meaning which do not affect word sense, refers, reference, or denotation, but which have to do with secondary factors such as its emotional force, its level of formality, its character as an euphemism. For example, you know that, for example, in the notation, the interclass things, a word can refers to. Example, the notation of dogs, all dogs in the word. And for example, queen, all queens. For example, Elizabeth I or Margaret, the notation is stable, while reference changes. But connotation, emotional or style association, for example, slim and scrawny, but meaning that a person is thin, slim, to has a positive connotation. It makes you think of an attractive person, while scrawny has a negative connotation. It makes you think of malnourished or improves a person. For example, connotation first, here are example of pairs of connotation that describe the same things or situation. The first has a negative connotation and the second is positive. For example, we say that fat, or the positive one is overweight. Disaster is a positive problem, and you can see the differences with the negative connotation, and the second is a positive. Okay, next it goes to compositionality. All human language have a property of productivity. This is a simple the fact that the vocabulary of any given language can be used to construct a theoretical infinite number of sentences, not all of which will be meaningful. By varying the ways in which the words are combined, for example, give the word the D. A has eaten, seen, passing, contemporary, novelist, and buffalo. The following figure among the large number of meaningful sentences can be constructed. For example, the novelist has seen the buffalo, and the novelist has eaten the buffalo. Contemporary novelist has seen a passing buffalo. The novelist has seen a passing buffalo. A buffalo has eaten a passing contemporary novelist, and so on. And so on. We can also construct ungrammatical sentence like the novelist has eaten passing, but since these are meaningless, we will ignore them here. One answer is the meaning is compositional. This is to say that the meanings of sentence are made up or composed of the meaning of their constituent like same. We understand novel sentence because we understand the meaning of the word out of which they are constructed. It is important to note that not all combination of words are necessarily compositional. One especially important category of non-compositional phrases is idiom. A principle of compositionality, the meaning of a sentence equal the meaning of its words plus the way they are combined. For example, the cat sleeps. The meaning is cat plus sleep plus present sentence structure. It's mean that the cat sleeps, but non-compositional process is idiom breaks this rule. For example, kick the bucket. Kick the bucket meaning kick plus bucket, it's mean die. Idioms must be stored as wholes. Is different is compositionality with the non-compositional phrases or idioms. Okay. The distinction between word meanings and sentence meaning, the different basic concept between lexical and precise semantics. Another important contrast between sentence meaning as just describe and utterance meaning. We can define sentence meaning as the compositional meaning of the sentence constructed from the meanings of its individual component lexeme, but the meaning of a sentence as built up out of its component part is often quite different from the meaning it actually has as in a particular context. Okay, levels of meaning with different levels. First is words meanings. Lexical semantics, meanings of individual lexeme. For example, dog. For example, cat is domesticated animals. And then we goes to compositional meaning, the sentence meaning, built from words meaning. Is the word, and the builds and have others words meanings. The dog, for example, the dog chased the cat. We understand because we know dog chase and cat. And the next is utterance meaning, is a contextual meanings. It's mean that depend on context. For example, in sentence, for example, it's cold here. Possible utterance meaning with this what is it with this sentence? Possible utterance meaning is first is statement about temperature, and then the second indirect request to close windows, and maybe in the third is complaint. Same sentence, different meaning in context is the utterance meaning. And the next, we can see that semantic explain the meaning as a result of interaction between several interconnected elements. It's the summary with the first slide until now is the summaries. It linked word, lexeme, mental concept, and the real world object while also consider emotional association, sentence structure, and context of use. Meaning is therefore not limited to a dictionary definition, a psychical object, or mental idea alone. Instead, it emerged from the dynamic relationship between language, symbol and structure, mind, concept, and interpretation, and world, reference, and reality is the semantic connection word, mental concept, real word, object, emotional association, sentence, structure, context of use. Meaning it's not just a dictionary definition, a psychical object, a mental idea. Is it the language of all three? Thought, symbol, reference, or language, mind, word. Okay? Okay, guys. Okay, students. We end of this meeting and the first meeting in the pragmatic, semantic and pragmatics course. Thank you for your attention. See you in the second meeting. Bye-bye.